Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Borough. We are back. We are closing in on August 30th as FAU will ship up to Maryland. But before we get going, before we do all that, we have preseason podcast for you right here on Inside the Borough FAU Owls Nest. I'm your host, Robbie LaStella, alongside our new co-host, Garon Bach, for today's episode, and our special guest for today as well, Ken LaVicka. Guys, we'll start with Garon. Garon, first time on here, first time co-hosting Inside the Borough. Welcome in. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Spent all last year covering basically every other FAU sport except for men's basketball and football. So excited to be able to touch on the top tier sports. But I still got to dabble going over the women's soccer game tonight. Just glad to give my thoughts on the Owls.
Big game tonight at the stadium, at FAU football stadium. Frank Fort on the call for that one, so make sure if you're available, go check it out in stadium. Ken, welcome back. It's been a bit. You've been all over the place, Inter Miami, ESPN National, but closest to your heart, the FAU Owls. Year 17 back. Ken, welcome in. How's it going?
Robbie, it's always good to talk to you, and I know when I actually see your face that we're in the FAU athletic season. I've seen Garon grinding out there, sweating in the sauna that is FAU football fall practice. Now, Robbie, this is a habit you're going to have to get into, though. Flagler Credit Union Stadium, where FAU soccer starts tonight, their season. You better get that right, or else you get fined. I don't know who's doing it. Maybe it's Brian White. Maybe it's someone from Flagler Credit Union. But get that committed to memory.
I know, yeah. I gotta get the correct name in there, not only for correct purposes, but that's we gotta give them their promotion.
Their money's worth. They spent a lot of money to put their name on that stadium.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to the team at Flagler. I'm excited to see what gets involved in what first season in the branded stadium. So. That's always that'll be fun. But Garon's first year covering FAU football. Ken on year 17. Garon has been out there every day, grinding out at the spring camps. Garon, initial feel. So before we get into individual positions, it's first year of Zach Kitley. It's not your first year seeing football, but it's your first year around the program, first year of Zach Kitley. What's your kind of general feel for everything? What's the vibe been like? And, is there anything that's kind of jumped out to you in your start so far?
Well, Robbie, for starters, I would hope it's not my first year watching football, or I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. But the biggest feel I'm getting from the locker room overall, talking to players, coaches, is the sense of a community, the camaraderie in the locker room. A lot of the players, returners especially, the ones who've grinded it out, who've been here, saw what happened last season, either had the opportunity to leave and stuck around, or even heard some of those calls, some of those dollars going their way but stayed here. The biggest thing is that they're saying that they're having fun, which is one of Coach Kitley's biggest emphasis of his teams, is that he wants you to have fun. And it seems like these players have really bonded over that. They seem to be excited for the season. But overall, the locker room, the team, it just feels like a family. Even for us in the media room, I feel like we're starting to bond. Players are wanting to share their stories, share interest. I mean, we've heard stuff about the Boondocks of Marshall already this year. So, we're having a pretty fun time, and I'm sure they are too.
We'll have to clip that and tag the Marshall fans so they can come at you, Garon. It'll be good. It'll be good engagement. But Ken, year 17 for you, year coach number 5 or 6.
Yeah, depending if you want to count Brian White's interim tenure.
Yeah, really. But what's it been like getting to know Coach Kitley for you? And then, kind of same thing to Garon. What's the baseline feel been like? I know you probably haven't been there every day, but I'm sure you've gotten time with the guys and whatnot as well. So what's that been like for you?
It's such as young as he is, and he just had a birthday, and despite that, he's still the youngest coach in FBS, and it's just a youthful energy with him. And you can tell, though, that he is every bit a coach's son. And he is the son of a coach who has had nothing but success in his time. Legendary Texas track and field coach. He is part of as many Hall of Fames as Joan Joyce was when she was still at Florida Atlantic, and when she was within her legendary run at FAU. I mean, it's certainly, to me, trickled down. He takes a lot of influence from his father, and it's just fun. And Garon brought it up. There is fun, and he wants everybody to have fun. Now, we do know realistically that things stay fun in the season when there's wins, because every coach that has been at FAU in my 17 years has talked about, we want the guys to have fun. And then when you're going into the final week of the season, you have 2 or 3 wins. That's not very fun, right? So there's still a lot to unfold with all of this. But I actually take my cues as far as Coach Kittley is concerned from the players, and almost to a man that I've talked to. Like they absolutely point out the fact that, hey, this guy's not a whole lot older than we are. They call him a player's coach. It would be easy for them to say, yeah, that's my buddy. That's my friend. That's a weird dynamic, right? But they have made sure to say, oh, no. When he's unhappy, he lets us know, doesn't hold anything back. This is not put your arm around his shoulder and, hey, pal, what's going on tonight? What do you got going on? Who are you hanging out with? This is get it right, demand the right thing be done mentally. Forget the physical part for a moment. If you're not checked in mentally, then you're going to lose Coach Kittley right away. And I find that to be, for me, extremely uplifting, because there's always questions about a young coach, especially a coach that never played. He never legitimately played a competitive down of football. And, man, he is on it at all times. You can see it, and then you hear it secondhand from the players, too.
I think that's a good role model to a lot of kids out there as well. To hear that, right? I mean, it's easier if you play football to get into coaching, but you don't have to. So that's an interesting note out there. And if there's any fans of Inside the Borough, that's a young generation, follow your dreams. Look where it got Coach Kittley. But it's a different feeling for me. It seems like having a guy come in here who's, he's not rebuilding himself at the same time. My tenure at FAU has been Willie Taggart. Yeah. I got 1 year of Lane. I wasn't a student, but I was coming here, so I was following it hard. And then I got Willie Taggart, and then I got Tom Herman. So this is a different feeling for me. It just seems like there's less pressure in a sense. Like, it seemed like Tom Herman had to come here and win right away. It seemed like Willie Taggart had to come here and win right away. Ken, is that kind of different to you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is the first time that Florida Atlantic has had a coach that's trying to establish himself as the boss of a program since Charlie Partridge. Now, FAU is in an infinitely different position now than when Charlie Partridge took over. Things were very bare bones at Florida Atlantic. FAU had just made the move to Conference USA after the unceremonious, controversial, and really heartbreaking exit of Carl Pelini, the way everything went down. So it was very much a program that was an embarrassment. It was a program that was in a ton of flux. It was an athletics program that was in a ton of flux. What Coach Kittley has taken over is significantly more stable, but you're right. This has, for the past 3 coaches, ever since 2017 rolled around, this has been Reclamation U. And so Brian White, and he admitted to me, yeah, I made this hire to sort of be other end of the spectrum compared to what didn't work with the last 2 coaches. And I think that's what you have to do. I think that's the approach to take, right? You don't want to bang your head against the wall and keep committing the same type of decisions to similar scenarios that just didn't work out for you. Now it is a little bit of a breath of fresh air, because it's not, and this is a negatively connotative word, for lack of a better word, retread, trying to reclaim former glory. This doesn't exist any longer. No. And so I think I'm excited to kind of see how he gets going first time, because also he's got a first-year defensive coordinator as well. It's not, he has experience to lean on. There's guys there, Chris Carter, DJ McCarthy, Chris Perkins, just to name a couple. But the 2 head guys first time, we got to have Brett Dewhurst come on here on Inside the Borough. Great conversation if you haven't heard that. But Garon, have you gotten to speak to him at all in media yet?
Yes, I have. Yesterday was one of the days we spoke to him. He and he seems to be someone who I think will do a good job on the defensive side. Someone in that role. I mean, he's got a lot of leadership with him. That's the thing I've noticed is that even though yesterday I spent time, it seemed that he was working with the safeties most of the time. Every single time we're going out there during camp, you'll see him with a different group, and you'll see him out there coaching. You're not seeing him over there trying to just get the whole group together, but you'll see him out there doing one-on-one individual player, not individual group with players. He's trying to better every single one around him, and that's something I saw yesterday during the safety drills with the fact of, hey, we need to do better on these step-offs. We need to be able to have the wide receiver. You need to hold him there within that 5-yard line. That was something that he was barking at the whole time, and that's something I like to hear because – as a coordinator, we're thinking, okay, yeah, he's going to be out there. He's going to call the plays, but how much of a leader is he going to be? And during fall camp, he has shown that he's basically right up there, I would say close to, well, not right there, but just right under Kitley when it comes to the hierarchy of leadership on the team.
To that point, Robbie, when it comes to the dynamic between Coach Kitley and Coach Dewhurst, let's not forget that this is the first ever FAU full-time head coach that has come in and immediately said, I am the offensive coordinator as well, or I am a coordinator on one side of the ball. You had Glenn Spencer, interim head coach when Lane Kiffin left. He coached the Boca Raton Bowl for one game. He was the defensive coordinator. He was still calling the defense. Brian Wright was the offensive coordinator when Carl Pelini left. He finished out the final 4 games of the regular season in 2013. But there's never been a full-time head coach like Zach Kitley is that is calling the plays. He is the play caller. He is also coaching not only the offense, but the quarterbacks as well. So there is, if we're talking about Coach Dewhurst, Zach Kitley is really leaning on Coach Dewhurst to make sure that the defense is set, that everything is going to be called correctly, that everybody knows responsibilities. And I believe, Garon, correct me if I'm wrong, Dewhurst has already announced that during games he's going to be upstairs, right? He's not going to be on the field?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it gets lonely up there. I was worried. It was nice to have Rock up there last year. Now I'm glad Dewhurst will be up there too. Now, because you can hear him. It's tight there, and so when whether it's good or it's bad, you can hear it. So I like that aspect of it at least. I was glad to hear that. But in terms of the defense, before we dive into the offense a little bit, there's a ton of new players, especially in that secondary. Garon, from what you heard so far, is that concerning, or do you kind of feel like all the pieces are going to come together?
Well, from obviously when you do these pressers, you're gonna get these types of praise for certain players. You're never going to get the full scope, but yesterday one of the biggest topics was that while there have been a few little beat ups, little bang ups, everyone looks to be healthy. And with that, a lot of the people that are going to be in the secondary are going to be people who have experience. A lot of the transfers coming in, especially over in the safeties room, but with Sweeney coming in, he seems to be someone who's going to play in a role. And something else that they were talking about is the fact that there's going to be a rotational back there to where we're not going to see a starter. And this is the whole thing with the defensive backs, to where I don't believe we'll see your typical safety cornerback nickel. You're going to probably see these players because they have been cross-training. That was the word too, cross-training. And that's why I can't really name certain names. Sweeney was one of the people I mentioned because he was one of the people we've talked to, and he's someone that's been called out. But one of the biggest names has been Zion Parrott, freshman, came in, and he has shown out during camp. And he's in line for a starting role there in the secondary, which, I mean, that for FAU, that hasn't happened in I believe 5-6 years, at least on that side of the ball.
Ken, where's the do you know who it is? I don't know who the last freshman defensive starter was. I don't know.
Well, in the secondary, CJ Hurd.
Oh yeah, last year. Okay,
last year, and so Garon brings up Zion Parrott. And I'm not saying that it is at the level of the discussions that were taking place about CJ Hurd last year, because you knew coming in, Florida Atlantic had absolutely committed a recruitment coup by bringing in CJ Hurd. And CJ Hurd sort of sought FAU out late in the recruiting process after things started to dissipate a little bit at UCLA, where he was committed, and he had enjoyed his visit to Boca and reached out and said, hey, I'm still available. I'd love to have you consider me. And of course, Florida Atlantic said, yeah, we have a scholarship. We'll take care of it. So I'm not saying that the discussions about Parrott are the same as they were about CJ Hurd, because CJ Hurd was a sure thing through and through. But the amount of discourse about how talented Zion Parrott is, someone who is still 18 years old, but someone who came in, graduated early from high school at Miami Central so he could get onto campus. He was one of the first faces that Zach Kitley and that coaching staff was able to see, Coach Dewhurst, and it's paid off because he's a physical freak. He's extremely smart. He comes from a benchmark high school football program in South Florida, and he is almost exclusively working with the ones now. Zion Parrott is a true freshman that is absolutely unequivocally going to be key to the success of the FAU secondary. Don't forget, I don't want to leave him out, but Wendell Ford is, whether he plays nickel, whether he plays safety, he's going to be really, really key for this FAU team as well, because we know he can hit. He's got a ton of experience. He's a big-time veteran. If he can stay healthy, having Wendell Ford back for another season is going to be extremely helpful from a continuity standpoint and a leadership standpoint, especially if you have a true freshman in Zion Parrott that you're really leaning on to make a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the development of Zion, or the less development or emergence, whatever you want to call it, that'll allow Wendell to be that guy who can move around the secondary. Because he, like you mentioned, he's a veteran plus. He's been around. I think this is going to be his 6th year, maybe 7. Not 100% sure. But he's got the experience where they can move him around. I mean, I don't think they'll put him on the side, out the outside, but safety, nickel, they can shuffle him. And so that's given them some flexibility, which was huge because you don't know exactly what you've got with some guys. They're all new. I'm excited to see Demarius McGee on the outside, potentially just transferred in from Kansas. And so he's going to be a guy I want to watch, and also Duda Rogers. I said this on the last podcast, but if those two guys can develop and be solid outside corners, that's a good duo. And then you've got, apparently, I've been hearing Chris Tooley's had a good camp. I've only been out there to 2, so I can't speak to it every camp, but you know, I've seen a couple posts, and he's the guy who's been around for a while as well. So there's depth in that secondary, and I'm excited to kind of see where they move guys around, maybe have first-year guys. At safety, I mean, Mike Wright is a guy who had a strong end to the season last year. There's some momentum to be built on. From what I've heard from Christian, he had a good year in the weight room and a good offseason in the weight room. So I think that's another guy who's set for a big year. We talked about this on the last podcast, so we won't touch on it too much. But the big thing for me in defense, as I said last time, is going to be the pass rush. I think, you know, Garon, has there been anyone that stood out to you? My guy that's a breakout candidate I like potentially is Eric Brantley Jr. off the edge. But is there anyone to you that's kind of stood out, or is there any names that have been mentioned that could be a threat to rush the passer?
You know, I haven't really got to, like I said, just haven't had a lot of time to see him. Everything has been closed off. I would love to give you an answer, but that's my issue right now. I'm sure what you saw during the spring game scrimmage, you probably got more of an idea from that than what I have gotten at camp. And that's what and that's one of the things I've been trying to share, because like I mentioned earlier, the day you were there, we got to see 2-minute drills. Sadly, the one scored on the second play, I believe. Well, not sadly, but just for our eyes, just to get to learn, try to figure out, hey, who's looking good. First play, well, the second play, it was Belcamp Messer, easy done.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wish I could say, yeah, this is the guy I like. But just right now, I haven't just had the time to see him.
But see, that's the honesty we appreciate. We don't lie to you here on Inside the Borough. We give you the honest truth. But Ken, is there anyone to you that you think could potentially be in for a breakout year?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of eyeballs on Eric Brantley, the Colorado transfer, and what he could bring in. Now, he's only a redshirt sophomore. So you're going to have to adjust a little bit and make sure he's still got some ripening to be had, right? And this is not an overly young pass rush. You're going to be really relying a lot on your interior linemen to, at the very least, get leverage and allow some of the youth that's rushing on the outside to get at the quarterback. I just look at how this team got gouged in the run game a year ago. And I know that it's a completely new staff. And while there are certainly more returners on defense this year than they were a season ago when we were doing this exact same thing, I'm a little less concerned. You obviously want to get to the quarterback. That's key. But I'm a little less concerned about getting to the quarterback and a little bit more of the thought that you got to prioritize shutting down the running game, because FAU was really in key moments last year, and the defense was able to hang in there statistically for a while, but by the end of the season, that whole thing had completely collapsed. I mean, you remember what Army did to FAU. You remember in a different way what UConn did to FAU on the ground, and I think that the UConn game hurt Tom Herman more than what Army did to FAU on the ground. It was just bullying. It was just having your way. I know that he's gotten some publicity because he went to American Media Days with Zach Kitley, and he's sort of been a face that FAU fans have seen this offseason. But I think Bryce Langston could have himself a really, really good year. He has done everything that the coaching staff has asked of him. If it's possible, he's gotten himself stronger this offseason. He has taken on a leadership role along that defensive front. Like I think that we could be talking about this guy, maybe not as a first team all conference, but he could certainly be on a second or a third team, I think, if he stays healthy. I think, though, the interior of the FAU defense, the big bodies, that's going to loom a bit larger, no pun intended, at least initially, than what the pass rush is from the edges.
That's a valid concern as well. A guy on the interior, I like CJ Doggett. I think there's talent on the interior for the run defense to have a bounce back year. The 3-3-5 has it's been a defense that, depending on where you find it, it's either really, really good or not good at all. For example, North Texas last year, we saw FAU rip that defense to shreds. It was a loss, but nevertheless. So I'm interested to see how this shapes out. It's a defense that, if it works, you can rush the passer and yeah, I'm excited to see.
The linebackers are going to be key in all of this. And I do think there are still some questions about what is the depth like at linebacker. And so both in the pass rush and in the run game, I do think that room, that's the huge wild card. The secondary, super athletic. The secondary has some guys. The secondary has some depth. The line has some depth. But, man, the linebackers, that's where the questions are going to be answered, good or bad. What have they been able to accumulate, and how are they able to respond right away, especially against a Big Ten team starting the season?
Yeah, and that's going to be a test for Tyler Stolsky. He's returning to the Big Ten. He's going to be the guy with the mic in his helmet. He played at Minnesota, didn't have a full-time starting role, so this is going to be his first time in that mic role. And so I'm interested. He's the captain. He's not a captain yet, but he's essentially the quarterback of the defense. So that's going to be
it on the field in practice. He's the guy organizing everything.
Yep, and it's going to be him and Leon Hart Jr., who I watch as if they have a good year. I think the defense has a chance to be solid. Garon, you mentioned the Boondocks. You talked to Leon Hart, right? I believe.
Yes.
What was anything interesting from him? So I'm assuming he's excited to be down here.
Yeah, so he shared, I can give you the exact quote here. I was just pulling it up because I knew exactly where you were going on this. He said, "I'm very happy to be here at Florida Atlantic." He said it's the place he wanted to be. And he added on, he said, "It just so happened that Coach Kit came and he just grabbed me. I'm thankful for the opportunity." But going on with that, with Coach Swens, he shared about Leon Hart. He said that he's a student of the game. He loves football. He has a consistent attitude, consistent action. And that he also looks to be a leader because he's working with younger players. He's wanting to make somebody else better. He's not just focused on himself. He's focused on the team around him. And he's kind of fitting into that spot right next to Stolsky here, because Stolsky, the quote has been, he's the coach of the defense, not the captain, not the quarterback. He's the coach of the defense.
That's interesting. So there you go. If they're getting good reviews, I mean, obviously, like Garon said, they're not going to speak bad, but they're not going to just lie either. So I think that's interesting to note. And you mentioned Coach Schwann's. Wherever he's been able to develop good units. He's had a lot of pros go under his coaching. So I think this room has a chance to develop. The defense, there's a lot of potential there. I'm interested to see how it shakes out. Maryland right away is a good test. That's a great test. But what obviously is going to make this FAU team is the offense. We all know it. We already heard about the Caden to Easton bomb in practice that we saw. But Garon, I mean, this your first time kind of seeing Caden in action. For a general fan who hasn't seen him yet, and Ken will get your thoughts on this as well. But what's Caden like as a leader? Is he your typical quarterback, or is he different? What's it been like?
Well, for Caden, he's a big dude. He's 6'3", 4, 5. I don't know. So he could be 6'6". I think he might be listed as. But as a leader, it seems that everyone seems to love him. I mean, even with us, he'll come over and give us a fist bump when he's ever during practice. He seems to be that guy, and that's the thing. Is one of the things he mentioned during camp. We had the opportunity to talk to him last week, and he said that this camp has been different for him because he is now the guy. And he didn't say it was a pressure onto him, but he just knows that he has a new responsibility. And it seems like whenever you talk to the coaches and you talk to some players on the offense, we've talked to wide receivers, running backs, they share that he's been very vocal. He's been a leader, and it seems that he stepped up in that role.
Ken, does he remind you maybe of any quarterbacks of the past? Is this like something that really FAU hasn't seen before in terms of bringing in a guy who's CUSA freshman of the year, has all the potential in the world, or is there somebody that this reminds you of?
I mean, he reminds me a lot of Jeff Van Camp, who was back in the early, actually late 2000s, that decade. He started in 2008 when Rusty Smith got hurt, and then had the starting job in 2009. He reminds me a lot of Jeff Van Camp. Really big, very broadly built, extremely strong right arm. And so he definitely reminds me of Jeff Van Camp. Yes, this is air raid, but you could put Caden Veltkamp in a pro-style offense, and pro-style offensive coordinators would be salivating over him. He's that type of quarterback, and he can move. He's got good pocket presence, but it's not just that. And I believe that Coach Kitley mentioned this after the scrimmage last weekend. We haven't even begun to open up that part of the offense and his game, getting him out on the move. So he reminds me a ton. Like, it looks almost freakishly similar to Jeff Van Camp. And Jeff Van Camp, the reason that FAU didn't win as much as they should when he was the starting quarterback does not have very much at all to do with Jeff Van Camp. So just trust me on that. So yeah, he's really, as Garon said, an unbelievably physical specimen. I mean, he you know who he is right when you see him. You don't need to see the 10. He looks like a guy that would have been a highly sought after coming out of high school, and he's vocal. But he's not like screamy, coach him up all the time. He trusts that his receivers know where they need to go, where they need to be, where the spacing needs to be, where you need to get lined up. His mere presence a lot of times for me is enough for everybody he commands respect. And I think that's how this offense is operated throughout camp.
Jeff Van Camp, I had to look him up. He looks stunningly a little bit like a cross between Caden and Zach Kitley, but he's 6'6", 222. So he was a string bean back there, but yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I could see that.
And think about it, like Rusty Smith was in the 6'5", 6'6" range too, and Jeff Van Camp came in And I don't think there's any question if Rusty sees this. I'm sure I'm going to get a text about it because there's no bigger ombudsman of me than Rusty Smith. But Jeff Van Camp was more impressive in the flesh than Rusty Smith was. And Rusty was a big, tall, pro-style quarterback dude as well.
That the history of FAU. So there you go, folks. If you want to preview what Canada looked like, you have to go back into the archives, watch some 2008, 2009 FAU. But in terms of the running backs, which to me, with this offense is going to be kind of what separates it from just being your typical air raid, because we watched Taj Brooks have 1,700 yards last year. Now, we don't have Taj Brooks, but we have very talented running backs in our own right in Jamari Sands, Xavier Terrell, who I think together can put up similar production to what we saw from Taj Brooks last year. Now, I don't know we're going to run the ball as much as they did last year, so who knows. But what concerns me, and we talked about this with Kevin last time, is the depth. Garon, has there been any talk about that during camp at all? Because to me, it looks like on the roster, unless I'm missing something, only 4 scholarship running backs, maybe 5 with Josh Harriet. But other than that, if injuries start to stack up, which gosh forbid they don't, then it gets a little hairy and you're starting to move wide receivers to running back or calling up people from the flag team.
Yeah, I will say that was, whenever we had the opportunity to highlight the running back room, obviously it was your big 3. It was Terrell, Stans, and then now pulling in is Shields Dutton. He's someone that's been filling in, and they've not said it's a duo, a dynamic duo. They said it's a 3-headed monster with those 3. So yes, injuries concerning because there's not many names on the roster that are scholarship wise, but I mean, overall for the group, we've seen Sands, we've seen Terrell, we know what they can do, and thankfully we can kind of have that not so sour taste in our mouth after the Tulsa game last year. But I will say that with the fact that they could be running 3 backs, it may be a workload of about 30, about 40, 20 is what I would assume. It does at least give me the peace of mind knowing, hey, at least we know, one, this is an air raid offense, so we're not going to be really too worried about running the ball, but we know that the back's going to be a big part coming out of the backfield, dump offs, check downs, things like that. But I'm not too concerned about the depth other than, like you mentioned, just how many names are on the roster.
Ken, you were up there in Tulsa last year. You got to see Xavier and Jamari that was like a breakout. They had a good end to the season overall, so it wasn't a necessary breakout. But for those two, do you think, and Caden Shield Dutton as well, who's a big back, didn't get on the field last year, but for those 3, because as Garon mentioned, it's a 3-headed monster, is that going to be enough? Do you think that'll get FAU at least, unless something unforsaken happens? Do you think that's enough for this offense to get the running game going?
I would argue, and I could be wrong. I mean, God knows I'm wrong, is much, if not more than everybody, okay? Just ask people around FAU. I get it all the time. But I would argue that the running back situation going into this year, FAU is in a better spot than they were a year ago if you're talking about bodies who are capable of coming in and contributing right away. CJ Campbell, Zuberi Mobley, you could probably argue that they are maybe a better duo right now than Xavier Terrell and Jamari Sands, okay? But there was no true Caden Shields Dutton who's sitting there hanging out. Sands wasn't that yet. Terrell wasn't that yet at this time last year. So now you have 3 running backs who are getting a lot of reps, getting reps with 1s and 2s. Sands, Terrell, Caden Shields Dutton, and you're also starting to see Harriet get some run as well. So they're trying to build the depth as this goes along. My sense is, and again, the Ken LaVicka refrain could be wrong, but my sense is, there's not going to be a feature back, but I think the bulk carry back, if need be, is probably Jamari Sands. And then your big hitter back is Xavier Terrell. And it's situational. It's by series. I think you'll probably see Easton Messer get involved in the run game a little bit because he's just sort of jack of all trades, able to just go wherever he's needed within this offense. So I actually would not be concerned much right now with the depth of this running back room. I do think that with the amount of weapons and the amount of creativity that Coach Kittley has exhibited in his previous stops, that FAU is going to be just fine. I do think they are going to lean on the running game. I think there's confidence in these running backs. I think this is going to be more than just sling it 45 times a game. If they can generate and dictate a ground game, I think Zach Kittley absolutely wants to do it. And one more point I'll make on this. After what Xavier Terrell did against Tulsa and the film got out coast to coast and some of his intangibles, his 40 time, his speed started to be seen by other programs, other coaches in other conferences, it is a miracle, not a minor miracle, but like something, if you're religious, it came from above. It came from a higher power type of miracle that Xavier Terrell is still in Boca Raton. FAU, if Xavier Terrell can stay healthy, this is an absolute steal that FAU, while he was already on the roster, it's a steal that FAU kept him another season.
The best gets are the ones you already have. That's a phrase. I don't know who made it, but I saw it somewhere and I agree with it. But you could
have said Einstein, Aristotle, and both Garon and I would have been like, "Oh yeah, of course they said that."
Exactly. No, it's true, because my next point is the offensive line, and we went in depth with the offensive line last week, so I won't dive in there too much. But Alex Atkovich coming back, Daughtry Richardson coming back. Who else? I'm missing people, but those two for sure. Scarlett Jean. There we go. That was the third one off the top of my head. Those three coming back are massive. You don't have to rebuild the entire line.
Literally,
you have three starters right there, and they recruited well as well. Vinny Fiaccabull coming in from Indiana is a steal. We talked about him last week, but 3 O-linemen, all starters, staying in the G5 level. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, I don't know if I'm just conditioned to expect, departures at this point, but that is impressive. But the one thing I do want to talk about in terms of positions before we get some final thoughts on this preseason here, wide receiver room. We know it's Messer. We know he's probably going to be the go-to guy. But a guy who I'm very, very high on is Quincy Brown. We saw Kittley name him as a red zone target, which I think last year in the wide receiver room, if I asked Tom Herman who was a red zone target, he would have said about 10 different names and said they're all fighting and we're going to rotate them. That this year, I feel like we're going to know, like, at least guys have set roles a little bit. Garon, is that kind of what you've gotten a sense of too? Is there going to be a depth chart, or are we going to see a lot of rotations in this wide receiver room?
I would probably go with a depth chart because of the fact that I would say Messer kind of helps with that depth chart type of role, where we know that he's going to be the receiver that's going to go out there. He could run, might be part of screens, stuff like that. But with the deep ball, things like that, red zone targets, I really think that, because we've talked about rotations on the defensive side, I think, and we've talked about rotations in the running back room, the wide receiver room looks to be maybe close to set with what we've seen camp, seeing who's been running with the ones, running with twos. And so I don't want to say that's what's going to happen, but at least just from my eyes, my own perspective, I'm pretty sure we can probably name out 5-6 guys that are most likely going to be the ones we see almost every Saturday.
The offense last year had a variety of different issues, but Ken, was it ever kind of confusing to you that the wide receivers never really established like roles? We saw later in the year even where Omari Hayes, who was arguably the best receiver, playing 5th most snaps, and then this year, do you think that having a potential depth chart like Garon said will make things a little more smooth, I guess you could say, in terms? I feel like guys never really had roles last year in that wide receiver room, and that didn't help, connections.
Yeah, I think what hurt the connections a little bit more, and I hate to pile on, but FAU had a quarterback problem last year.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for your wide receivers to flash or be anywhere near consistent when you have a quarterback who was not comfortable in the pocket for half of the season, so much so that they had to change the offensive protection and spread it out a bit along the line of scrimmage to allow the quarterback to feel comfortable in the pocket, not rush decisions, and not be throwing behind people. So I think that probably is more a product of the passer than it was the receivers. And we saw Amari Hayes eventually break through that and earn himself an NIL deal off of that and go elsewhere. I don't anticipate FAU having a quarterback issue this year. That's the whole reason Caden Veltkamp came from Western Kentucky as the Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, Florida Atlantic was dismal, an abomination in 3rd and 4th and short last year. That didn't help anybody. And FAU in the red zone was absolutely atrocious last year. That's quarterback problem. That's offensive line problem. That is rushing game problem. Just get this real quick. And I am working on this, a deep dive in FAU's red zone issues last year for in addition to the Florida Atlantic Voice that's going to be coming out in the next few days. But FAU had the same number of red zone opportunities as Navy last year, okay? And Navy scored 66 more points off of those red zone opportunities than FAU did. I mean, guys, the 3-9 was not anything undeserved last year for this football team and this football program based off of that number alone, let alone everything else that went into last year. So as far as the receivers are concerned here with FAU, I am so high on Ja'Sean Platt. I think Ja'Sean Platt is going to take the top off of defenses throughout the season. I think he is a deep threat that FAU has not had in quite some time. I think that he is primed to break out. I am unbelievably excited for him. Someone else that has caught my eye as well is Asad Wasim, the Colorado transfer. He has absolutely put himself in a position to get a lot of run. And I don't think that there's going to be a lot of cycling with receivers, at least not within possessions, because Zach Kitley, he is obsessed with tempo. Go. Don't you dare take a step on the field. As soon as you do that, someone gets to substitute in on the other side. A lot of those intricacies have been points of emphasis for FAU during the course of the spring. So I think they're going to roll with a core 4 or 5 guys, and obviously possession to possession, you might adjust it. But once you're in a series, then that's who they're riding with. So you got to trust these guys. And I'm telling you, 3, Platt, 0, Wasim, you're going to see and hear a lot from those guys this year.
That's good to hear. If you guys aren't familiar, Ja'Sean Platt has been here for a couple of years. He redshirted last season, and when someone redshirts and then the coaching change, they might leave, but he stays. That's another person that Zach Kitley and company was able to keep. Things are, you never know how things work out, but if things work out well, this staff's job of retaining a lot of talent, there were departures, but retaining a ton of talent will have to be commented on for sure. But kind of closing out here, it's been a while since FAU has reached a bowl game. We're not going to make crazy predictions on this podcast or anything, but it has been a couple of years since a bowl game. 6 wins. I have looked at the schedule, and it is difficult. I mean, you guys may be hearing me, it's difficult to get to 6 wins. It's not going to be the easiest, but it's possible. We broke it down last week, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Is a bowl game in year 1 relative expectations? Is that too high right away? What are we thinking? We've always started with Garon, so we'll close out this time. We'll start with Ben.
Well, my fault. I'm so used to going first. I was all ready for it. My fault.
No, go first because I've got a little bit I need to get off my chest with this. You guys are therapy for me, so go ahead, Garon.
My fault, Robbie. I was so used to you wanting to have me first. I was ready to go. If I'm being completely honest with you, my first year covering the team, obviously as a student last year, before I transferred to FAU, watched them football-wise. I'm more so as a fan of the team, not media, nothing else. As a fan, if they could improve the wins and just show, and even some losses, a close fight, close games, I would be happy with that. To me, that is a step in the right direction. To go from 3 wins last season to 6 this year in a world to where a lot of the teams in the American have had a lot of turnover, have had even a coach or players leave. I'm fine with just improvements in the win-loss record and the margin of victory or margin of loss going down.
Ken, let's hear it.
All right. So it is one of the great mysteries of our time that a school like FAU that plays in a stadium like Flagler Credit Union Stadium, that has a practice facility / team headquarters like the Schmidt family complex, that plays in South Florida and has had coaches across the board who have objectively at one point in their coaching career been elite, how this is not a program that hits at least 6 wins every single season, every year. North Texas, if North Texas can do it every single year, then for the love of God, FAU can hit 6 wins every year. But here's what's happened at FAU, because don't forget, FAU has been to a bowl game since the Lane Kiffin era, but they didn't get 6 wins that season. And they were poor in that final month of the year. They had 5 wins. It was 3 5-win seasons for Willie Taggart. So for me, Zach Kittley said it, and I wouldn't go as emphatically as I'm going if Zach Kittley hadn't said, I mean, there's no reason to not have bowl games every single year here at FAU. That came out of Zach Kittley's mouth. And when I heard it, I almost fell to my knees. And I started praising a higher power, because he's right. How in the name of football God does FAU not have a bowl team every single year? 6 wins should not be as arduous as we make it. And it should not be this unattainable climb up the peak that we make it to be sometimes at FAU, because there should always be enough here to get it done, especially in the portal era. So FAU should have 6 wins. But what I want to caution people against doing is think, 10 wins, 11 wins, like baby steps here. The goal, and Zach Kittley would never say this is Ken LaVicka. This is just me talking to you guys and the fans. 6 wins is the expectation. Just get to the show, get into the game, get into the postseason. First and foremost, that's your priority. Don't lose sight of that. But I would never sit here and say, 4 wins would be an improvement from last year. 5 wins would be an improvement last year. No. Get to a bowl game. North Texas can do it every year. USF acts like they're the favorite in the league every single year under Alex Golesh, when all they've done are post back-to-back 6-win seasons with Alex Golesh, and then went on to win their bowl games with a tight end playing quarterback Syracuse, and then needing 9,000 overtimes against San Jose State to win their bowl game last year. And USF fans treat Alex Golesh like he's Vince Lombardi or Nick Saban. And he's done it with, again, 6-win seasons. Let's just win 6. This team's perfectly capable of winning 6. The run for 6 begins August 30th at Maryland.
You heard him. That's the voice of FAU. The voice of FAU says 6 wins is manageable. Don't comment. Don't at me on Twitter. I don't want to hear it. It's possible.
6 wins or bust. Let's go.
Let's go. There is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, FAU fans, and it starts, as Ken mentioned, on August 30th from Sekou Stadium in Maryland against a coach who might be on the hot seat. That we can make that seat hotter. I mean, what's better than that? I'm sorry, and that's rude. I don't know Mike Loxley.
But think about it. Like last year, you went into a Big Ten stadium with a brand new head coach who's making his debut at Michigan State, and this year you're going to a place where the coach immediately has some hot seat pressure on him. I mean, you're not wrong about that at all.
No, yeah, I don't know Mike Loxley, so it's always rude to call somebody's job, but at the same time, it's true, and that's the sport.
Yeah.
You got to win. You got to win. If you don't win, if you're Maryland and you lose to FAU week 1, there's going to be some angry donors. But on paper, if you look at it on paper, Maryland's obviously bigger. They got some big boys, that's for sure. They're going to have some talent, but there's always been some questions about the on-field coaching abilities of Mike Loxley. I'm interested to see first-year Kittley in his first game ever against a coach who people have questioned his on-field coaching ability. I'm not going to say FAU is going to win that, and that is a discussion for another time because we are out of time. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Borough. Ken, thank you so much for taking some time before the season. Guys, if you don't follow him on Twitter, his ad is right there. Make sure to do that. You'll get a good view of the road games. He always goes on his runs. You can follow me. I'm not going to every road game this year, but if I do go to one, I'll give you a good breakfast spot or two. And follow below Garon Bach. Garon, what's your Twitter? Plug it so the people can follow you as well.
Gbach 2003. First name initial, Bach, year I was born, 2003.
You were born in 2003? Good God, man. I am the oldest senior citizen going now.
It sucks.
Never.
I look at the roster, I see 05. I'm like, never mind. Makes me feel old.
We'll hear Ken screaming in the booth, and he'll sound like a 25-year-old, and it's all good. Garon, thanks for joining us first time, and we'll have you back on here soon. And, folks, as always, thank you for tuning in to Inside the Borough. For Ken, for Garon, I'm Robbie. We'll see you next time.